guys!
Hello!
We're here today to film Owen's medical school Q&A video with all of your guys' questions on the medical school journey thus far. Obviously, we're like in the very beginning part of it, so we're just gonna answer as best as we can. So this is the start of the medical school videos, I guess?
Year zero.
Year zero down, I guess. Culled all of them together. There were quite a few repeats. Some of them we can just answer all in one. You guys can kind of like get a feel for how our journey's gone thus far. This is the first question. How many schools did you apply to and how many of them were DO schools?
Well, I applied to about 15 MD schools, I think 3 DO schools. The DOs were more of a safety for me. I have heard of people actually preferring to do DO. That just wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to go to an MD program. I think applying to more than 15 is not a good decision just because pretty much every school you apply to, you will get a secondary back from. And if you get 20 to 25 secondaries back, it's going to be very difficult for you to answer them in a timely manner. So you do not want to overdo it with the applications.
Okay, next question. Was your interview at LLU scary?
I was nervous going into it. I remember driving there, going there.
I drove there.
Yeah, you drove there, but like I was in the car, I was super nervous.
Yeah.
I was really nervous leading up to it just because I wanted to go to Loma Linda so badly. And I was just really anxious, excited about it. But the second I actually got on campus, the whole process started, it was not nervous at all. It was just a great experience. Everyone was so nice. I actually really enjoyed it.
That's good. Okay. Question number 3, how many years is medical school?
Medical school is traditionally just 4 years, obviously after your undergrad. My university does have a program, I don't know how common this is, like a master's to MD, where they basically turn it into 5 years, where you repeat the first year if you can demonstrate that you are able to, work at the academic rigor that requires medical school.
Did you feel at a disadvantage coming from a private school?
Going to GCU, one of the worries that I did have when I originally went to GCU was that they're not known for putting out a lot of awesome medical students. And that's not their MO. I was nervous going to Grand Canyon University, which is a private Christian university, getting into medical school. But I really think that looking back on my whole journey, I feel like God just put me there. He's really opened the doors in the exact way that they were meant to be opened. I think maybe on paper that going to a university like that is not the ideal way to go to medical school, but it worked out for me and it couldn't have been any better.
Yeah, I agree. And I think too with Loma Linda, which is such a blessing, is they look at like the person as a whole more than like just academics.
Yeah, and there's a lot more to a good doctor than just how smart you are. Just your MCAT score and then later on your step 1, step 2 scores and all your scores. They are important, but they are not going to be what makes you a good physician in the end of it.
Yeah, that's so true. What classes will you take your first year of medical school?
Basically, the way that the program I'm in works is the whole first year is learning how the body works, all the anatomy and everything like that. And then this whole second year is, for the most part, learning how the body breaks down, all the disease and all that kind of stuff. I know I started out with embryology and biology and anatomy and physiology, histology, the basic core science classes to learning about how the human body works. And that's pretty much what the whole first year is going to be about.
So exciting.
Yeah.
And they get to dissect a body like in a lab.
Mm-hmm. Sure do.
Crazy. So crazy. Oh, makes me sick. What did he score on the MCAT to get into LLU?
I got a 512 on the MCAT. Average is 500. I think it goes to 528 is like a perfect. I don't know if anyone actually gets a 528. For the most part, I would say if you have below a 505, then you would be very hard pressed to get into an MD program. DO traditionally is a little bit easier to get into. Now that's kind of the range. It's very subjective because you could have awesome resume besides that. You could have great GPA, you could have all these awesome extracurriculars. So it is very subjective. There's no hard limit to what you need or what you have to get into the program you want to get into.
Did you ever consider taking a gap year to give yourself a break?
A lot of people plan a gap year into their medical journey, but that was never part of my plan. I mean, some people want a break, some people need extra time to prepare for the MCAT, but I did not want to waste any more time. I took a gap year after high school and I worked as a scribe for a year and I felt like that was my break and I don't need another break. I planned to take the MCAT my junior year and I planned out my courses. I made sure that I would be prepared to take the MCAT early enough so that I could apply and hopefully get in somewhere that I wanted to go right after getting out of college.
What's after medical school?
After medical school, then you go to residency. Residency is between 3 and 7 years. It all kind of depends on what specialty you choose. The longest 7 years, I believe, is neurosurgery. Generally, I think family medicine is 3 years. And then you can also do a fellowship after that where you do an additional specialization after your residency. Between 3 to 7 years is a rough approximation of how long residency is.
Was Loma Linda your dream school, and did you get to choose Loma Linda?
So Loma Linda was my dream school. I feel like now, especially now that I am here, there is no place in this world that I would rather be than at Loma Linda. Just the people, the community, what the whole place is about is just truly, truly exceptional. Medical school is not easy. I don't want this to be a time where it's just like awful and terrible and like I can't wait for this to be over.
Yeah.
And it's not gonna be like that because I'm at Loma Linda.
How has your relationship been through it all? My boyfriend is going through it right now and it's so hard. I can kind of take this one off a little bit. This question was on my little box. I gotta say something.
Yeah.
Our relationship has been great through it all. It has been hard, just like, of course, you just can't spend near as much time together when you're like in the thick of studying and stuff. That's been a big adjustment for me just because I love spending time with Owen so much. We have a ball together, always. I just know that it's like a little bit of sacrifice right now for a huge reward later for not only him, but us as like a family and a couple and everything. I dealt with that throughout undergrad, but like obviously it's gonna be mega now, like on another level now.
It's another level.
So obviously I haven't really experienced that much. His first 2 weeks were all like rotations. So he was in the emergency room. He just had like shifts in there and it was really no studying. But tomorrow, he starts out like full blown in the classes. So I think
we're hitting it hard.
Then we're gonna like really get a good impression of how it's gonna be. I think just being open to the fact that sacrifice is part of it. Like you can't have your cake and eat it too. Take time for each other and obviously like spend time together. Make sure to do date nights. Go on little getaways with each other. Still do all those fun things, but
and
realize
the little time you do set aside for each other, you really take advantage. That time.
Totally. So just like set those times aside for sure. But obviously realize that like when it's time to study, like you need to let him study and like kind of do your own thing. Do you have anything else to add or?
No, I think you hit it all. Hit the nail on the head.
Boom. When did Owen know he wanted to be a doctor?
I didn't really know I wanted to be a doctor since like I was a lot of people when they're like kids growing up, they're like, I always want to be a doctor.
Right.
I wanted to be an architect
Oh, did you?
for a while. And I just like
that.
drawing and I like art and stuff, so it was like drawing houses. As I finished high school, one of the reasons I took my gap year was because I had an idea that I might want to be a doctor and I want to go to medical school, but I know it's not easy to get into medical school and you need to really perform in undergrad. I was at this point where I was like, I don't feel motivated enough and I don't feel mature enough and I don't think I'm ready to go to college and have the kind of motivation it takes to get into medical school. I took the gap year and I worked for a year. That was the best decision I ever made. From that point on, when I got to college, then I was like, I am so ready to go and tackle this and I want to be a physician. I want to help people and I want to learn and I want to be a part of this and I want to serve others. And it was just like that gap year really gave me time to really think about what I wanted to do with my life. Basically, since starting college, I knew I wanted to be a doctor. I was a biology pre-med major and I never changed majors. I was straight through.
You just laser
beam.
Which is like rare.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they change their major. I think like average is like 6 times. We're young, we don't know what we want.
Yeah.
Heck, I changed my path like 1,000,001 times.
Yeah.
Still considering what I'm doing with my life, like at this moment. What does he recommend future med students do in order to get accepted? And this one kind of goes with another question. I should have culled these down, I didn't. What extracurriculars, shadowing, scribing, research, etc. do you recommend?
I think the first thing that I should say, and it is very important, is that your resume will not be perfect. No one's is perfect. If you get into Harvard Medical School, it's still probably not perfect. There are always going to be things that you should have done, you could have done. It's okay. Everyone's got something. So don't feel like you have to be perfect. Like you got a C in a really hard class and you're like, oh, I got a C, I'm never going to get into medical school. It's not the end of the world. So I think things that you should do is you should definitely do whatever you can to get involved in research as early as possible. Even your freshman year in college, if you can. I didn't do that, but you should, if you can. Getting involved in research early on will allow you to really invest into that research, and you might even get like a paper published, and that is a big deal. That is a big deal on your resume to show that you are interested in research and you are interested, because basically being involved in research demonstrates to people who are letting you into medical school that you like to learn and you are good at learning and you like investigating things. You should also try and be a part of some kind of volunteer work, something you can do long term, like whether you do it every week or maybe just once a month, whether it's at your church, like a homeless shelter, or you volunteer at a hospital, whatever you can find. Something that you can do continuously over time is going to be the best thing. And kind of segueing off that is letters of recommendation. One of the reasons why you want to do these things consistently, starting from the beginning, really building on them, because your letters of recommendation will also have a very decent impact on your ability to be a competitive applicant. The more you invest yourself, I mean, it's not just like, oh, I'm just doing this so I can get into medical school. You are going to enjoy it more, and you're going to have a more meaningful experience because of it. Also investing in the relationships with other people, whether it's the people above you or your peers around you in that field. They're going to end up writing you letters of recommendation, and don't be afraid to ask for letters of recommendation. I felt very awkward asking some people.
Do it early on too.
Yeah, don't be afraid.
Like, don't wait till the last minute, or else then it's like, I need that.
Yeah, it's like, I need you to write me a letter right now.
Yeah, and it just makes it harder for them to like want to do it.
Absolutely.
And then you're like, I also have a timeline.
Yeah.
And when you're like asking for someone to do something that takes them a lot of time, it's like a lot.
Yeah.
So like,
ask at least a few months. I'd ask at least 3 months in advance for a letter of rec. Just try and be involved. Make sure you have letters of rec that are from people that have a good knowledge of who you are, because you have invested in these things and they are meaningful to you. It shouldn't just be like a waste of time that you're like, I'm just doing this so I can have a good resume. Like, it should be meaningful. And if it's not, then you need to find something else. Besides that, you need to have a decent GPA. I think if you have above a 3.7, you're pretty much good to go. At that level, like 3.8, 3.9, once you're there, it's like, they're all kind of the same. And your MCAT, you just gotta do as good as you can. And that's all you can do, just as good as you can. And God will open up the doors for you where He wants you to go, and that's all you can do.
Was there any websites or Q&A forums for medical students that you found helpful during your application season?
There were maybe a few little pointers I got from different websites or Reddit or just different student forums. Nothing that had a major impact on the way I applied or the way I studied or really did anything. I think there are helpful things out there, but you take them with a grain of salt, because again, this is a very subjective process.
It's different for everyone.
It is very different for everyone.
I just applied in June. When should I start to hear back from schools for secondaries and interviews?
Your secondaries should come back. For me, I applied, I believe it opens up the application June 1st.
Right.
And I applied like a day after it opened. Ideally applied the day it opens. I wanted to like tune a few things up, and I wasn't. So I waited a day. About a month later, I got almost all of my secondaries within a week. So they came very quickly. And when you get your secondaries back, you want to turn each of those over within 2 days. Like you should be doing nothing during that time when you get them, but filling out your secondaries and making them polished and making them nice, because those are a big deal. And turning them around quickly shows wherever you're applying to that you are really interested in that program, and they care about how interested you are in that program. They want to accept people that want them to. And then interviews, you can get them within around August, maybe September is when they start. Pretty early. Every school's different. I know you can look it up online. And it shows like this is the time frame for their interview process.
But I think it's anywhere from like August to February. Some of them are March. Like,
I don't know.
It's a big gap.
It's a huge window. I think I interviewed.
You got asked to set up your interview date in October. It was right around Halloween.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And then they had dates starting January 1st. And then your interview was January 24th. Those are pretty late.
I feel like that's on the late side.
That's on the late side for sure.
But just because you aren't getting interviews doesn't mean you're not going to get an interview. Because it can happen.
Over till it's
it
over.
is not over till it's over. And even if you get waitlisted, I was fortunate that I didn't get waitlisted.
Yeah, you got right.
Even if you get waitlisted, my understanding is if you get waitlisted, you still have a very good chance of getting in.
You have more of a chance of getting in than not getting in if you're waitlisted, from what I hear.
Yeah. Even if you get waitlisted, don't just like throw it away like, oh, I'm on the waitlist, they'll never get to me, I'm too far. There is still a very good chance that you are getting in. So don't take that as a failure, just take that as I am just one step closer to where I want to be.
What do you want to specialize in?
That's 4 years from now is when I will pick that. I have a lot of experience with ENT, which is ear, nose, and throat. It's technically called otolaryngology because my dad is an ENT surgeon. I've also been on 3 mission trips with Loma Linda's ENT program, so I have a lot of exposure to ENT. I think it's a super cool specialty. It's got a nice balance of time with people in the clinic, and then it's also obviously surgical, which I really enjoy. And you can really tailor it to what you want within the specialty. That being said, I don't know enough about all the other specialties to make a good decision at this point. I have spent the last 2 weeks in the emergency department because we do 2 weeks of rotations before we start our classes. I've really enjoyed being in the emergency department. I think it's super cool. It's a really neat environment, and then you work on a shift, so when you are off work, you're off work. You don't gotta think about it, which is kind of nice. You're not thinking about your patients and when you got a round and all this stuff. You just work your 12-hour shift and then you're done. But at this point, it is early in the game, so I don't really know. I would lean ENT. At this point, don't know. We'll have to see.
Yep. Well, we'll see. Do you get summers off in medical school?
The way, at least I'd assume most medical schools work the same. The way that Loma Linda works, the first year we get about 2 months off. We are encouraged to do something productive with those 2 months. Like, I will probably...
I say let's go on a big 2-month vacation.
Yeah, I wish. But like, I will probably be doing research during that time. Some people obviously you don't have to do anything. But if you want to go for a competitive specialty, and for example, ENT is a very competitive specialty. It's on the competitive side. If I do end up wanting to do that, I should be doing research during that time or something productive during that time. So it's not a true vacation necessarily. But besides that, there's no real summer breaks after the first year. Then you're straight through.
Straight through till the end.
Straight to the end.
The mighty end.
Yeah.
Last question, this one's for me. Monty, is it hard being the lesser educated one in the relationship? No offense, I'm in the same situation and I just wondered if you've ever struggled with that at all. That's interesting.
It's a good question.
It is a good question. No offense taken whatsoever. You know, sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's not. I don't know. I don't really feel like it's that hard for me just because Owen and I are so vastly different. It's like comparing an apple and an orange. Like, you know, I'm like very creative and into my photography and into my hair. Owen just doesn't even like think in that realm, you know? And like, I do not do science or math or any of those things that he could do. So like, kind of like he can't do what I could do and I can't do what he could do, and we just appreciate each other's gifts. And I'm like a huge supporter that like everybody brings something unique and different and special and equally, listen to that, equally as important to the table. Don't feel discouraged or anything. Like if you're the lesser educated one in the relationship, I'm totally confident and competent in my own skills and my own qualities and gifts that are unique in my way that I bring forward that like he doesn't. So I think that's just a really good way to think of it, just to like be confident in you and what you bring to the table, because we're all unique and different and great in our own way. So I think that concludes our Q&A video for Owen and I's journey thus far on the medical school process. I hope that was insightful for you guys. I know when Owen and I were going through this process with application and interview and all that stuff, there were so many questions that we had that we like didn't know who to ask, that were like physically going through the process at that time. So we're trying to be those people for you guys. So if you're in this process right now, if you're applying or in undergrad or anything like that, hang in there. It's so worth it. There are a lot of X factors and unknowns, but it's like totally worth it in the end. So we are going to keep these videos more regular as Owen progresses through the 4-year program. So if you do have any more questions pertaining to this stuff as we go, definitely don't hesitate to ask. That's what we're here for. So we hope you guys enjoyed this video and it gave you guys some clarity and answered all your questions. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.